in the generation you grew up in, you played like 8 high school football games. There were no camps. You played college, but, now kids have 12,000 snaps by the time they're 9. So the grading scale for quarterbacks is, it's different now. We expect a little more. But there are some similarities, whereas, some guys are comfortable sitting in the pocket and getting hit, and some guys are not. And go back to your first year where you play at Washington State, then you go to the NFL. And I was watching Zach Wilson of the Jets this weekend, and I'm like, for a guy that's not that big, he sat right there in that pocket, and there were people all around him. Did it take you a while to get comfortable with uncomfortable in that pocket?
Well, you got to remember now, when I went to Washington State, my first couple of years that we started, we weren't particularly great. I mean, our line, my last year was pretty good, but I got used to getting hit early and dealing with that. That's why I've always been concerned when you see some of these, these quarterbacks that come out of these prestigious college programs like Alabama, Ohio State, and we've got a couple of those guys this year. Because they don't really get hit very much, and they're thrown to guys that are wide open, and that changes dramatically when you get to the NFL. You are getting hit, and your guys are covered more tightly, and you got to be able to deal with that.
Is how long on average? I mean, football lexicon or football language, it hasn't changed that much. When did you get comfortable where you didn't have to think about it? The play came in, you knew what it was. It was less thinking, more reacting.
Yeah, that's the perfect question, Colin, because it really is. It's about learning a language, right? The plays don't really change that much, right? There are only so many things you can do, and there are very few unique ideas. But you got to get comfortable with that language, and you have to learn to think in that language. I think they talk about when people go to a different country and have to learn to really truly learn a new language. You don't really know you've got it until you start dreaming in that language, right? So, when you get to the point, and for me, it took, I was pretty comfortable with it by probably the second or third preseason game and just speaking the language and not having to think about it very much. But then it's, you continue to get more comfortable for a couple of years.
Listen, we all know in the NFL, 5% of the players are special. 5% are hanging on, maybe 15%. And then there's a lot of guys that are in the middle. Tebow didn't look the part. You can't leave this league for 8 years, come back and make a team at a different position. That's just not, it's just too hard. There's just too many good players. Do you think there was, when he came back, do you think there were some guys, though, that kind of looked at it and thought, oh, God, give me a break? Because these are, when you get to the NFL, for a lot of people, it's a life-changing experience, even to be the last guy in a roster, right? The money, the pension potentially. How do you think it played in the locker room?
Well, I've been around Tim a little bit, and I'm a big fan, man. You spend a little time around this guy, and you understand why everybody that plays with him loves him. He just is truly a fantastic person. But the perspective that I have for what he tried to do, my brother played at Colorado. He was a quarterback. And then he tried to switch to tight end one year, and he's a big, strong dude like Tim, and he's real athletic. And but he called me about a weekend. He goes, "Dude, you have no idea what it's like going from playing quarterback where you get hit and so on, but to running into these athletes on a daily basis and trying to learn to block those guys when you're not used to that and haven't grown up with it. It's an almost insurmountable challenge." It's one thing to go run routes and catch balls, and you've seen guys do that. Probably the best example ever was, Hines Ward. But if you have to line up at tight end and try to run into these guys and block NFL linemen and linebackers, it's just not possible, no matter what kind of athlete you are.
Yeah. So, it's in Chicago, they're just going Looney Tunes over Justin Fields. And he's a very good player. I mean, you can just see. I can see it. It's obvious. 6'3", 220, moves well, got a big arm. But there's a lot of pressure in Chicago. There's pressure on Matt Nagy. It's a great American sports city. When you're playing and you're young, and go back to your early career, did you sense the fan pressure? Did you read the papers, or were you so insulated that it just, none of it mattered, it was all football?
I did purposefully go look a few times just to see what was going on, particularly my rookie year. I threw 5 interceptions against the Steelers my rookie year. And I purposely went and grabbed the papers just to see how bad it was. And the start of And one of the first sentences was that it was the worst performance by a quarterback in the history of the New England Patriots. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, you can only go up from here, right? But you have to remember though, I mean, that, pre-social media, pre all of this stuff, which is so hard to stay away from, and so it's one of the things that a quarterback has to have in order to be long-term successful, is an ability to understand that stuff's out there, but not let it affect what you do when you're on the field. And that's positive or negative. I mean, Justin Fields has one good preseason game, and they're already trying to enshrine him in the Hall of Fame. And that's just not the way it goes. But I am a fan of the kid. I'm a fan of all these young quarterbacks. I think they're exciting players. There's the future of the NFL from the quarterback position looks to be very, very strong with all these guys coming in.
We had Tony Baselli on yesterday, and we were talking about preseason, and I said what's kind of interesting is a lot of the young coaches, the McVay group, they don't want to play any starters. It's like he's their Pied Piper. The old coaches, Tomlin, Rivera, Arians, Andy Reid, and Bill Belichick, they all played guys. And I said, the old school guys. And then I asked Tony Baselli, does it matter preseason? And he had a really interesting answer. He said, we've cut down on hitting in practice, and now nobody wants to play in the preseason. He goes, you get better at football by playing football. And I do look at the preseason, and, I know, how do you land on that? Is practice overrated after a certain point?
No, practice is never overrated. You gotta get your reps, and you got to work your technique and so on. But Tony's point is very, very valid, particularly when it comes to the physical positions and with the limited hitting they do in the NFL now. If I was playing one of those positions, I would really want to get on the field and have some live contact. I don't want my first live contact to be in the first regular season game. And then from a quarterback standpoint, a guy, like Aaron Rodgers or Tommy, they don't necessarily maybe need those reps, but I know in Tommy's case, he just wants the reps. He wants to go play. It's why he's still doing it. He's not trying to prove anything. He just likes to play football. And so when the preseason comes around, I'm sure if he didn't want to take preseason reps, he wouldn't have to take preseason reps, but he just likes to play football. So that's what he's doing.
By the way, the Seahawks signed Jamal Adams as a guy who wraps your arm around football in the Pacific Northwest. Dwayne Brown is still unsigned. Jamal Adams got signed. Just give me your forecast on what you like and don't with Seattle going forward.
Well, they've really kind of come around these last few years that offensively Russ is their ticket, right? And they got to run the offense through Russ. And he's been such a fantastic player for so many years. So I think, they're going to have to try to keep him healthy. And I think that's where their biggest issues have been in the past few years. They just have not been that great up front. And I haven't seen all that they've done, but hopefully they're getting a little better up front so that Russ doesn't have to make every play running around and running for his life and making these spectacular plays, which are amazing to watch. But that's kind of a high wire act, even for a guy as talented as Russ is.
Did you get a say in the playbook when you played? Did I get Play call.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember I had 8 different coordinators in 14 years. So,
God.
But generally, what we would do is be on like a Friday or a Saturday. We would go through everything that we had in for the week, and we would get to list I really like these 10 plays. And then we also generally had the option, going into the game, like I didn't really like this play this week in practice. And most of the coordinators, if you said, not real comfortable with it, you just throw it out, and the good coordinators would always do that. If there was a play that the quarterback wasn't comfortable with, you just don't run it. Or if it didn't look good in practice, you just throw it out and don't do it.
Doubleback Winery in Walla Walla, doubleback.com. He's taking one of his kids to college. It's a very nerve-wracking time for Drew. It's a lot of anxiety. And, your little girl's going to be not in the house, and you're going to have to do crossword puzzles and talk to your wife and everything, and that's just the way life is.
Look, don't try to go Roy Firestone on me and make me cry. I'm not doing that today, right? I'm not doing that today. Give me a couple days. When we drive away, I'm going to be in tears, and that's how it works. It's sort of funny when you're a parent. You work so hard, put all this energy in, and your reward is they leave you, right? But so it's very, very. It's very, very bittersweet. A lot of sweet, but also bitter. But we're empty nesters now, Colin. So I'm free, man. Whenever you need me, let me know. I'll come down and
I'll bring the golf clubs.
I'll come down and see you. I'll bring the golf clubs. But I sent some wine down to you guys. Did you guys get your wine, Joy? I sent you some wine.
Did not receive
that arrive?
My wine.
She loves
Oh boy!
wine.
All right, you're probably going to have to fire somebody because I know it was sent. I will double check.
You sent it here to the studio?
I believe it did. So there might be somebody in trouble today, Joyce. You might need to check on that.
I will look into that.
I'll follow up on my end, but I'm pretty sure there's some wine that was sent your way.
Thank you.
I saw it in the mail room. Then I saw Dave Coelho, and then it disappeared. So it's very interesting how that works. All right, Drew.
Appreciate you, buddy. Always good to talk to you. And maybe now that I got all this free time, maybe I'll actually come sit in the studio with you guys here one of these days.
That'd be nice. If you could do that.
I'll bring the wine. I promise.
Yes.
All right. Drew Bledsoe. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.